Okay, so we're going to continue with the type of agency relationships. I'm going to try and get through all 5 lessons in the unit exam in under 30 minutes. We'll see. If not, we'll break it into two videos. All right, the duties you owe your clients are the type of agency relationships we're talking about here, whatever you agree to by both you and the consumer. The truth about single agencies. Single agencies are the require the brokerage and all the brokerage and agents that work in there. And you have to adhere to your firm's policy when you sign a contract with that broker. The firm's licensees won't represent opposing sides. Licensees can act as a buyer's agent in one transaction and a seller's agent in a different transaction. All right, if your client asks for advice that outside the scope of your expertise, your duty as fiduciary dictates that you are to refer them to an expert. You're not an expert in everything. You might know some about mortgages, you might know some about law, but you should send them to somebody that knows, is an expert in that situation. Okay. You can do this in different transactions from what I'm reading here. You can't do it in the same transaction. In the same transaction is what they're saying. But this says in a different transaction. False. Okay. So basically, if you need to do a screenshot, this would be a good one. Your resource over here is pretty small, so you could take a picture of that. I'm going to pause for a second, but I can't pause too long because we got to move on. So if you need to take a picture, you go back and rewind the video. All right, as a single agent, what topics can you advise them on? Real estate, mortgage? No. Legal? No. Appraisal? No. None of that, okay? All you can do is advise them on real estate because that's what you're going to be, a real estate professional salesperson. If you're going to law school and you're going to go on the board, then maybe you can advise them on law when you become a lawyer. Okay, as a seller's agent, you represent the seller. You invest your time and energy and whatever you have totally to that person and getting their property sold. You need to make sure that you got a buyer, and when you do, you deposit their money that is in a legal way, which is usually through the broker. There's a special way of handling that money, so be sure you know the rules in your brokerage. All right, customer. You have a relationship with the seller and the buyer. In which capacity would you identify your relationship? The customer, your client, I'm not sure. You're a seller's agent, so your seller is your client, your buyer is your customer. That's right. Okay. All right. As a seller's agent, you owe specific duties to your sellers. Which of these duties do you owe? You're an advocate for your seller. You are not an advocate for your buyer. You seek a sale of the property at the best price. You inform the buyer that you represent the seller, and that is correct. Okay, seller's agent tasks. Beyond your duties as a seller agent, there are specific tasks that you should perform on behalf of your client. You need to market and sell the property. You cannot conduct the appraisal. You have to hire somebody to conduct it. Ensure the money is deposited. Inform the seller of the responsibility to make all property required disclosures. Negotiate the contract terms. I guess. Communicate all offers. Perfect. Okay, so the only thing you're really not going to do here is you are not going to conduct the appraisal. You're going to hire somebody to do that. Seller agency agreements. As we mentioned a few times, agency relationship is created by an agreement. Which of these agreements would you have for the seller? You would list their property, correct? Right. Listing agreement. Spell out the scope of your authority. So which of these items are good to discuss with your seller at the time you sign the listing agreement, and which are better discussed at another time? Other agents who show the property may be acting as buyer's agents. Another time. You don't need to do that at the listing. Appraisals for showing the home Yeah, you want to do that on your listing. Commissions related. What if the house appraises for a different amount? We can do that another time. Um, they said it's good to discuss other agents showing the property. Okay. All right. They're saying it's good to discuss that, so we're just going to take that. The only thing they don't want you to discuss at the listing is if the appraises for a different amount. You don't want to confuse your seller with all kinds of unnecessary stuff that may or may not even happen. They got a lot of stuff going on. They're getting ready to sell their house. They got them, it's a lot of stuff. All right, and going into the buyer's agency. Same kind of thing, except it's your buyer now. You're going to ensure they understand the importance of due diligence. They need to get an inspection of the property. You need to make sure you review all the documents with them. You need to negotiate for them. You need to ensure that all the required property conditions are received from the seller. You need to make sure you show them properties that meet their criteria and their budget and whatever else they ask for. All right, so your buyer is your client, your seller is your customer. All right, as a buyer's agent, you advocate. This would be a good screenshot right here if you get confused on whatever your buyer agency agreement is. An advocate for the interest of the seller, advocate for the interest of the buyer. You seek the best available price that is acceptable to the buyer, and that's pretty much it. You show your buyer's property that meet their criteria and fall within their budget. Ensure the buyer receive all property condition disclosures, and you ensure the buyer understands the due diligence of a professional property inspection. You ensure favorable appraisal. You cannot perform that. You review transactions with the buyer, clarifying whatever may be confusing. Negotiate contract terms that are fair and reasonable. Okay, so the only thing you can't do is you can't ensure that the appraisal is going to be favorable. We have no idea of controlling that. Okay, why buyer agency matters. All right, you need to know why this matters. It matters because without agency, there are 3 people on the seller's team. Me, the listing agent, and the seller. And there's only one person on your team with agency, and that's you and I. My responsibilities will give you to be the best house for the best price at the best terms, to negotiate for you and give you undivided loyalty, to handle all the paperwork for you. If you don't have that, if you don't have an agent, then you have nobody to handle your paperwork. All right, you're meeting with a buyer who doesn't want to sign an agency agreement. And who represents whom when you show this customer property? All right, doesn't want to sign an agency agreement. Who represents whom when you show this customer properties? All right, that's a little confusing, but okay. You are representing I guess. I don't know about this one. All right, so you're representing the seller. If they don't sign a buyer agreement, since the buyer's a customer, you don't represent them. Puts the buyer in a lonely place. Okay, let's assume the buyer signs in an agency agreement. Now you are representing them, right? No, you're not the listing agent. Okay. You are representing the buyer. There you go. Now let's talk about what you'll do for a client versus a customer. You're going to act on the consumer's behalf. All right, and decide if something you perform solely for a customer or solely for a client. All right, are you going to advocate on a customer? Negotiate the best term as a client. You're going to show properties within the price range as a client. You're going to give the consumer, you might be able to do this with a customer. Let's see what it says. Yeah, so you're going to do this with a customer as well. You can show people, consumers, or potential clients, customers, consumers, they got different names they're calling them here, but consumers and customers, you can show them properties in their price range for without signing an agreement. You're just going to go above and beyond if they sign the agreement and you become their, if they become your client, you're going to go above and beyond. Okay. We're going to meet 5 agencies here and see who does what. Paul signed a traditional agency agreement and she wanted to sell fast. And into the open house walked Brenda, and she loves the neighborhood, asked about the house, comparisons. Although Malcolm would love to sell house to Brenda, she, somewhat of what she shared with him, realizes that another house 2 blocks away would be the perfect fit for her, and he offered to show it to her the next day. Brenda was excited and agreed, and Malcolm called the seller of the house nearby to arrange a showing. How many of these agency laws occurred? Malcolm wasn't representing by arranging to show a competing house to Brenda. Neglecting the duties of the... Maybe that one too. Let's see. Let's just check them all and see what happens here. Right, all of these he did. Undisclosed dual agent because he was... The case of the traveling salesperson. Kimberly had a new listing she was excited about. Her seller, a traveling salesman, told Kim that he didn't want to show any showings until after he returned from a business trip. Kimberly was sure he had a buyer for the property and was eager to show it. The day her client left, Kimberly got a call from the buyer's agent. I must show the property today. Wants to pay top dollar. Kimberly tried to reach her client, but he was en route and his cell did not pick up. There can be no showings today from the instructor. What 2 conflicting fiduciary duties did Kim face? Loyalty, obedience, maybe? Right, loyalty and obedience. The duty of the loyalty is you have to put the client's interest ahead of her own. Now, if he said no showings, then that's what you got to do. I mean, he's taking a risk. If he's trying to get rid of a house, you don't want to be doing no showings. But anyway, that's another story. All right, Martin met with Bobby, wanted to sell his condo quickly, and he thought he might have a buyer lined up, and the buyer was still working on financing, and he didn't want to waste time marketing for a buyer to get his financial ducks in a row. I really would prefer not to sign a listing agreement because I have a potential buyer in the wings. Martin really wanted the listing. It was prime property, but he was almost certain he could locate a buyer himself. I don't think you should wait, Martin told him, with an exclusive right to sell agreement. I'll work very hard. You get your right buyer quickly. I can probably get you 10 birds and one in the hand for one in the bush. All right, where do I sign? Bobby asked. It's in the seller's best interest to get the right buyer quickly. Did Martin act appropriately? This one, maybe not. All right. No, he should have described an exclusive agency agreement. Bobby hoped not to pay a commission if he found his own buyer. Okay, that's why he was doing that. An exclusive agency agreement would allow this. Such an agreement would have allowed Bobby to find his own buyer and forego paying Martin a commission while also letting Martin market the property and perhaps finding a competing buyer. This is super confusing. By not disclosing the option of this, Martin puts his own interests above his client, violating the duty of loyalty. Okay. I wasn't sure what he was doing there. To me, it seemed like he was doing the right thing, but he was trying to avoid another commission. Okay, that's what he was doing. Um, you have your own interests above. Kamal was attending a networking event. He was proud of his tag, salesperson, Acme Realty. He had been our licensee for 2 months, and he already had a closing and a listing. And halfway through the event, Kamal was approached by a woman, Nancy, some from Hair to Eternity, in a brief introduction. And she says, "I'm interested in one of those listings." And really, he said, "I don't think I know that place. Is that a corner lot?" And she said, "Yeah, it's a corner lot. I made an offer, but I'm thinking I might increase it by a few thousand. What do you think?" And I think if you really want it, you should probably do it. How badly do you want it? Pretty badly, she said. It's a sweet backyard with all this stuff, and I haven't been able to find anything else like it. And I absolutely need to be in that school district. Well, Kamal said, "Go for it." And she said, "Thanks, It's nice meeting you." Shook his hand and departed. Did he break any agency rules? I don't think he did. No, I guess he did. Big one. Okay, let's see what he did. All right, Kamal broke a big agency law. Let's see what he did. Listen to Nancy discuss her motivation to buy. Is this an agency law? He shouldn't have did that. Um, advice on her offer. Gives Nancy advice on her offer. I mean, I don't see why not. Okay, disclose an agent for he represents the seller. He should have did that. So he shouldn't have listened to her discussion. Well, she should have shut up, right? I mean, it's kind of rude when somebody's sitting there saying all this stuff. I guess he should have interrupted her and told her that he's an agent in the middle of her conversation. All right, loose lip licensing. Cindy was at a baby shower for a former coworker. Lucy, hostess, insisted on involving everybody in this silly diaper game. And then she unveiled a custom-made cake shaped like a giant pregnant woman, and she escaped to the yard drinking wine. And then she going on, "All my neighbors buying a condo, and he is ever having a time of it." And they're going on about the property. And then Cindy knew the listing. She knew the listing agent. He worked for the brokerage firm. And she said, "Yeah, I know about that. I heard he's a real putz. He is being unreasonable." Well, what can you expect? His wife left him for a personal trainer. The ladies gossip. And so he needs to get everything he can from the sale, but if he doesn't sell now, it will be too late. Well, then he should be more reasonable. The woman who introduced the subject, you got it right. You never know with some people. Like, which of the following did she break? I think loyalty and disclosure, confidentiality. Confidentiality. Okay. So, yeah, you got to be careful when you're drinking, right? Case closed. All right. So now we're going to do our unit exam. And hopefully we'll pass it. This one I think is kind of long. I think this is like 10 questions. 10 questions on this. Oh my gosh. All right. What responsibility does the seller's agent have to the seller? Oh, advocate for the seller in the best light, even if it means covering up material defects. Now, advocate, ensure the sale is profitable for the seller, ensure the sale is profitable. We cannot ensure that a thing is profitable, in my opinion, anyway. All right, Estelle is representing a seller, Margaret. Which of the following is the task that Estelle is required to perform as Margaret's agent? All right, this one. This one. Okay, in a single agency relationship, a firm represents either party. All right, Marvis is a buyer's agent working with Blaine, an unrepresented seller. Marvis's buyer makes an offer on Blaine's property. Marvin assists Blaine with the paperwork. What's Marvis's relationship to the party? Marvis is a buyer's agent with Blaine. What's Marvis's relationship to the party? Okay, this person is unrepresented seller with Blaine. Boy, this is super confusing. Okay, so Marvis is representing Centra. That sounds like she's working with both. All right, a licensee has several tasks to perform for other sellers. Which Which one of these tasks? All right, they advise the seller on the property disclosure, communicate all offers, disclose to the sellers of the property doesn't sell, the asking price must be lowered. Communicate all offers and counter offers. After a few minutes, the Stinsons sign a listing agreement with broker Vera so she can sell their house. The house already generated interest from a potential buyer named Sergey, who has spoken with Vera about this. And which of the following is true about this information? Okay. Because Vera now has a sub-relationship with Stinson, shouldn't talk to Sergey until the house is on the market. Um, all right. I don't know. That's a tough one. All right, I'm guessing on that one. All right, your seller client directs you not to do any showings until Monday, which is fine because you believe you will have a buyer to make an offer Monday. But on Sunday, you get a call from another agent who has an interested cash buyer who's leaving town and must see the property on Sunday. Which fiduciaries are in conflict here? Obedience and loyalty. We already had this question in one of our things. Carla works for a single agency. Which of these actions is she not allowed to take? Okay, when a licensee represents a seller, which of the following statements is true about her ability to list other properties that are for sale? She should be able to list more than one property at a time. I mean, I don't get that. License is permitted to list them as long as they're not competing. License permits them for sale even if they're competing. I would think you could list two properties. I don't get that. Okay, in a seller agency relationship, to which party does the licensee owe undivided um, loyalty? You owe it to the broker probably too, but it's a seller agency. All right, any goats here? Well, we got 70% and we passed it. So we passed it, we don't have to take it again. But let's go through and look at what we got incorrect. Okay? If you need to take any screenshots, I'm going to pause for about 10 seconds. And if you're missing it, then you can go back and rewind the video. These questions will help you on the test, by the way. And if you're having a problem in this particular, if you took the test and you failed the agency part, you need to go back and study. These are the kind of videos that you need to be watching, okay? Because this will help you. All right, so this one we got wrong. And so she is representing Margaret. What is she required to perform? She is to inform her about required property condition disclosures. Okay, that's what she is required. You're not required to hire somebody to market their property. And they recommend a price range to sellers, but it's not a requirement. Okay, in a single agency, the firm represents either one of them. All right, Movis is a buyer's agent. She makes an offer with blame. What's the relationship to the party? She isn't. This was super confusing. I was like, I knew I was going to get this one wrong. Okay, she is an agent to Centra and the sellers or customer. Oh my God. Yeah, this one was like super confusing. I mean, hopefully you're not going to get anything this crazy on the test, but you might get it. So because they really want you to understand the agency thing here, boy, this would definitely be a question to ask. She's an agent to Centra, right? Because she's a buyer's agent, which means they sign an agreement. And she is making an offer on Blaine's property, which is the seller. Her buyer is making an offer on that. She assists Blaine, which is the seller. So the seller is her customer, not her client. She is in it. Okay. So I could have read that a little bit more. I would have figured it out, but I was being lazy. Okay, communicate all offers and counteroffers. That is one of your tasks for your seller client. Okay, this one was another one that was super confusing. Okay, the Stinsons and Vera had brokerage relationship agreements. Okay, I read this 2 or 3 times and could still not figure this one out. So that's what they have here. There's no agreement with Sergey. There's nothing. There's no dual agency here. Vera is the broker. So they have a brokerage relationship agreement. But I would think she could still talk to Sergey. They just don't have an official agreement. All right. So if somebody doesn't want you to show anything and you got stuff coming in, which is probably the kind of stuff that's going on right now in this market, you have to do whatever your client tells you to do. Whether you agree or not, doesn't matter. You have to listen to them because that's part of your agreement. All right. Obviously, they're not going to be in a hurry. If they don't, if you try and contact them and you talk to them about it and they say, go ahead and show it, hey, go on and show it. But if they say no, then you're just going to have to let it go. They're either going to have to wait till he says they can look at it. Don't let these people try and pressure you into doing something that's going to cost you and your client, piss off your client and lose them as a client. You don't want to do that kind of crap. It's really not worth it. I'm just so glad we passed this test because I don't feel like taking it again. Okay, we're going to talk about sub-agency next. So if you need help with sub-agency, it says Maryland, but it's going to be all over the entire United States. Usually it's not specific to one state. I wish they would stop putting that on there, but that's what they do. So if it's specific to Maryland, I will let you know because I have passed this test before. I just let my license go, and that's why we have to do it again. So a lesson learned is do not let your license expire, or you will have to take this crap all over again. All right, I'll see you on the next video.